So let me welcome you all to the delegation meeting. We've been wanting to have this delegation with the HBCUs. We're very proud of all four of our HBCUs in Maryland. They do incredible service, not only to the student body that they are directly impacted by your programs, but your impact in our communities. All of you are engaged in the community itself, and we very much appreciate that type of commitment that you have to our community. So as my colleagues are coming in, we will recognize, obviously, these are challenging times with the coronavirus. We just worked out an agreement on a supplemental appropriation bill that I believe will be taken up in the House of Representatives later today, and we can find that out directly from Congressman Hoyer, who, as I said, I'm very thankful that that I have so much control over my good friend Steny Hoyer on scheduling that he wouldn't dare schedule any votes anywhere near the time of our meetings. You don't have any votes this afternoon, do you?
We do. We're going to do a little piece of legislation, $8.3 billion for coronavirus. So I'm sure you'll let us go for that.
We will. We absolutely will. And it's one of the issues that every one of our schools have to face, how to deal with the challenges if we get community transmission, which is very likely, and it gets into our community, then obviously we're going to have the capacity to make decisions at each of our colleges and in our communities. I want to acknowledge the role that Congressman Hoyer has played in this emergency supplemental appropriation bill. My colleague, Senator Van Hollen, who serves on the Appropriations Committee, has been involved in these discussions, as is all the members of our delegation. The good news is that there's funds in here to help our local health communities, to make sure that we get the capacity locally to get the test kits out, things like that, which are extremely important and which are not there today. We have limited capacity, but we have to expand that dramatically. And this supplemental appropriation bill is very much aimed at that. So I want to thank Congressman Hoyer for his work in getting that up today. We hope to get it up before the end of the week, so we hope to pass that. We're here today with the HBCUs. As I said earlier, we're very fortunate. Dr. Breaux here from Bowie State, Dr. Wilson from Morgan, Dr. Jenkins from Coppin, and I know that Dr. Anderson will be here shortly. She is confronting the problems on the Bay Bridge. And that's all, it's not our fault, that's state government's fault. So. Would you please tell them that? So we would help you if we could. We're interested in hearing about what's happening on campus. We know that there's a great deal of attention in the Maryland General Assembly. There's been a long court case involving the HBCUs. We know that there's an effort being made by Speaker Jones for legislation to try to bring that litigation to an end, and we would welcome your observations as to how that is proceeding in the General Assembly and how you see that lawsuit ultimately being resolved so that we can, again, move forward. The Maryland delegation has made access to higher education a major priority. We recognize that there are cost issues, and we want to deal with those cost issues. We have, in the FY20 budget, the HBCUs got a bump up of funds. That's mainly because we had outstanding lobbying here in Washington. I remember Dr. Breaux coming and lobbying. Dr. Wilson's been here. You all have been here. So we thank you for your lobbying on behalf of the HBCUs. The Future Act that Senator Jones championed here in the Senate, permanent authorization for the mandatory funding. That certainly was a major step forward on Title IIIF. And we were able to get the land grant, which is the UMES in regards to the Farm Bill to help us for all those. So it's been a priority, more money, permanent authorization, and looking for angles in which we can help the HBCUs as well as our overall commitment to higher education. This is the year we will be taking up the higher education authorization bill. We don't know if we'll complete it this year, but it's certainly on our agenda. We are looking for ways of making college more affordable. I've introduced legislation that would guarantee that any student attending our HBCUs who stays on accountable tracks could do that in a debt-free environment. There's other legislation that's pending here also that would do good things. I know we have a time problem because of votes in the House, so with my colleagues' permission, I think the way we would go is go directly to our witnesses. We will then, I'll let Senator Van Hollen make his comments, and then we'll turn it over to the House members. So I think in order of seniority, Dr. Wilson, you've been here the longest, haven't you?
Have I been here that long?
I think you have.
I think so, yeah. First of all, to Senator Cardin and other members of the Congressional Delegation, we at Morgan certainly appreciate all the support that we have received from you over the years. I can't believe that I am concluding my 10th year at Morgan. It's been a decade. It's been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to work very closely with you to push Morgan State University to a higher level of excellence. We are really, really fortunate at Morgan that even during a period of immense enrollment decline, both in our state as well as nationally, we have not only been able to maintain our enrollment, but grow our enrollment. And this past year, we were one of only 2 universities in the state of Maryland to actually have an increase in enrollment, and that has been done with a high degree of intentionality. On campus, we continue to see our students excel in so many different ways. Morgan is the #1 HBCU in the production of Fulbright scholars. We had 2 more last year. We have now produced 149 Fulbrighters at Morgan. And we were recognized here in Washington by the Fulbright Commission just a week and a half ago as one of their leading producers of Fulbright scholars. We also are seeing our students now being offered wonderful opportunities for internships all over our state, and now it's becoming challenging for us as we continue to produce a diverse workforce for the state of Maryland to get many of those students to stay in state the way that they have in the past, because now all of the corporations outside of the state have discovered that particularly in engineering and in the sciences, Morgan is a #1 producer in the United States. And so now you have the Silicon Valley that's coming and offering our students these opportunities. And so with that in mind, we are deepening our partnerships and our relationships with Maryland-based technology companies, and Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman and all of those companies as well are coming to develop deeper partnerships with us. I guess last week, I, along with my 3 HBI presidential colleagues, appeared before the Appropriations Committee in the Maryland State House of Delegates and testified on behalf of a bill that House Speaker Adrian Jones had introduced to bring an end to this long-running lawsuit in the state of Maryland. We are extremely optimistic, we're hopeful that at the end of the day, that particular bill will be passed by the House and it will be passed by the Senate. What I'm hearing is that there is some possibility, though there seems to be some discussion around a clause in the bill that hopefully the parties will come to agreement around. And it is one that where if this bill passes and it will become legislative action, then that would be the end of this lawsuit and not continue to open the door for additional litigation going forward. And so we are encouraged, as I said, at that setting, this lawsuit in Maryland has been going on now since 2006. It's now 14 years later. I think we're really harming our students by not just settling this, getting it over with, and taking the money that we are using for legal fees and other things, and giving it to, or investing it in the students that so direly need it. And so we are optimistic, and we, of course, I speak for myself and at Morgan, last comment, we certainly would encourage you as a congressional delegation to make your voice known to the state if you think that would move the governor and the legislature to want to end this in a way that we think your collective voices would create the kind of powerful voice that could be heard. And so I'll end there, and certainly would be open to addressing any particular questions that you may have with me, given the time constraints.
Doctor, before we go to the other two presidents, excuse me? The assumption is you want to hear what I say?
You were on before.
Was I on before?
Yeah, just turn it on. There you go.
There we go. Is it on?
Yeah.
You can hear me? Excellent. You mentioned the clause that is included or being discussed in the legislation. Are the three of you or the four of you for that language, or which, as I understand, you're saying it would make clear that the cases were thereby settled if the legislation passed and be funded? Is that, are you for that or against it?
Well, I speak personally. My understanding is that what has been proposed by Speaker Jones is the $580 million or so over the 10 years. And then the amendment that has come forward, several amendments, but one has come forward, which is an additional $10 million per institution per year for 10 years. There's a contingent in the original bill, which basically says that whatever settlement comes out, it would be contingent upon the parties actually agreeing not to go forward with further litigation, right?
The premise being, as I understand it, that if in fact the legislature, the General Assembly, and the governor signs the sums of money that are included in Speaker Jones's legislation, that would settle the cases that are pending or that might be filed in the future.
With the additional $10 million per year. So what the bill is calling for, plus the $10 million per year. That is my understanding as to what is needed in order, perhaps, to move this to the next level.
Thank you.
Dr. Breaux.
Am I on?
Let me
There
take
should be
some.
a whole red light.
Let me take some personal privilege in light of the fact that Bowie State is in my district, obviously in our state, so you both represent Bowie as well. We met the other day with the HBCU advocates. I forget the name right now. What was the?
Yes, with the Thurgood
Dr.
Marshall.
Breaux, you were not there, and I missed you. But in any event, I mentioned Alma Adams' role, and also Jim Clyburn has been an extraordinary advocate for funding for HBCUs and the focus on HBCUs in the Congress. And I have as well, as Doctor, I mentioned that I had been involved with Bowie State since 1967, when I was first elected to the State Senate, and Dr. Samuel Myers was the president of Bowie State. It was then the college. It was not the university. And I welcomed Dr. Breaux the second day she was on campus. I went out and visited with her, and she is doing an extraordinary job at Bowie. And Doctor, thank you very much. I'll end with that because I want to hear your testimony, but thank you very much for your leadership.
And since we represent every one of these, we would agree with Congressman Morgan's assessment, Dr. Breaux.
Well, thank you for
And
your very
Dr.
kind
Dr.
comments,
Jenkins.
and thank you for all of your support that you have given to our HBCUs and throughout the year. And I want you to know that Bowie State University is thriving in Prince George's County, and I truly appreciate your support. Just a side note, President Myers, I will see him next week. He will turn 101 this year.
101. Isn't that amazing?
101, and I'm very honored to have known him, and he's been a great supporter of mine and Bowie State. So thank you again for your comments. Bowie State University is growing, it's thriving. We hit an all-time record enrollment high last year of 6,320 students. We took a slight dip this year, mainly because we are now out of housing. It's one of those good problems to have. The good news is that we are building new construction. As we speak, they're clearing the land as you come into our campus. They're clearing land for a new entrepreneurship living learning community. And I want to acknowledge Senator Cardin for the work that you've done to advance a bill for entrepreneurship and to ensure that we get the support that is so needed for the students who are coming to the campus on parallel tracks looking to get their degrees, but also looking to start up new businesses. And not too long ago, we announced on the campus of Bowie State University, along with the Bowie Innovation Center, the new efforts that are underway to provide that support. The new entrepreneurship living learning community has 3 components to it. It will have an entrepreneurship center to open up the campus to the larger community to support our students on the campus, but to house the Bowie Innovation Center that supports the community residents who are looking to start a new product or create a new business. We want to help them accelerate those initiatives. And so we're very excited about that new construction. It has 3 components: the Entrepreneurship Center. It also has the much-needed 550 new beds to help accommodate the demand, the high demand that we continue to see. Our applications are up by 4% this year, so we know more students want to come to Bowie State University. We continue to develop new workforce initiatives, new workforce-related programs. We are currently developing new programs, including in our areas of strength, including the STEM areas, in cybersecurity, data analytics, growing our nursing program, and also preparing teachers today because there's a huge teacher shortage across the country. We want to be a part of the workforce talent development initiatives. We continue to expand our campus. We do want to, in addition to the construction that is underway, we will be building a new communications and humanities building that is a replacement project to meet the growing demand and also to address the infrastructure needs. As we look at developing new programs, we still very much need the support for infrastructure. As we talk about the coalition case, we're very excited. I'm very pleased to see that possibly finally being settled. And I'm very supportive of the Speaker's bill. I think it is the closest we have come in the many years that this has been unfolding. So last week when we sat together as presidents, we were united in supporting the Speaker's bill that will finally bring this to a close. And so if that were to come to a close, I don't want to sit here before you and have you think that that is the end of the need that we have. We have an aging infrastructure on the campus. The average age of our buildings is 44 years old. A recent consultant's report showed that we have need over the next 10 years that totals over $100 million for Bowie State University alone. The oldest building on our campus is 100 years old. And so it would be difficult for us to create state-of-the-art new workforce programs in the facilities that we currently have. So we've garnered support from the state. We're very appreciative of that. But to the extent that the federal government can be of some support, we would greatly appreciate that. We continue to hold down costs. And as a public university, we're very pleased that the tuition increases have been held to just about an average of 2% a year. But we remain concerned about our population coming to the campus that still has great need for, and their challenge for affordability to be able to come to Bowie State University. Just about 2 weeks ago, we announced the opening of a new food pantry that we're calling a Nutritional Lounge on the campus because we have found that students are facing food insecurity. And we're very pleased for the partnership with Food Lion, but we need our state, local, federal government all pulling together to help defray the costs, keep debt low, but also help our students fill that gap that still exists. And so to the extent that we can all pull together in the same direction, that would be very much appreciated. So we are growing, we're thriving. I'm hopeful that the enrollment numbers, and not just hopeful, but we know that the enrollment numbers will continue to go up with the new housing that we have. We are working diligently on the delivery of new programs in offering new programs at Shady Grove in Southern Maryland to ensure that we are meeting the needs of our students in other remote locations. What I would like to close with is asking that as we look at the HBCU Partners Act and HR 1054, that we continue to engage our federal agencies in making sure that We are continuing to have access to grants that we are at the front of the line, not in the middle or the behind, in the back of the line when opportunities come about with new grants and new opportunities. Bowie State University is looking to partner in ways that we never have in the past, and that's what's needed today. But we need to have that access as new funds are becoming available. And so with the White House initiative and the executive order that was signed February 28th, 2017, there's greater investment in our HBCUs, but we need to all pull together in a bipartisan way, and I know with all the support that we have garnered from each one of you here today, and I'm sorry Representative Anthony Brown is not here, with all the work that he's been doing with the DOD, I'm hopeful that we will continue to grow and thrive, but we do need your continued support for infrastructure, to hold down cost, to help our students afford access to our institutions, and we look to you for your continued support. And thank you, Congressman Hoyer. Yes, you have the record for being the first to come in and welcome me to Bowie State University. And I'm sorry, Senator Cardin. I know, and Senator Van Hollen, I know I get myself into trouble that way.
Everybody here, big supporter of HBCUs,
Yes.
including, of course, Congressman Brown, who's absent. But the thing when you mentioned the building that's 44 years old,
Yes.
both Senator Cardin and I voted on the capital budget
For that.
to build that building.
I'm sorry. It's got to come
Thanks
down.
for reminding us, Steny. I appreciate that.
I'll take you
Next
through
time.
a tour of the building.
Don't you have to go vote or
And
something?
now you're just coming back for
I'm
more, right?
sorry.
But I do want to underscore one point about partnership, and you mentioned in the beginning, we're very proud of what you're doing in regards to minority entrepreneurship. I'm ranking on small business, and I'm following in the tradition of Congressman Parent J. Mitchell in tailoring the programs under small business to help minority and women-owned businesses. You're doing that at Bowie. At Morgan, you're doing an incredible job reaching out for women entrepreneurs, and we appreciate that. At Coppin and UMES, you are very much providing community services for the community to help in entrepreneurship. So we appreciate what all of you do in that regard. Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Senator, and thank you all for being here and allowing us to have this opportunity. As the newest member at the table and the one who is not yet at his institution, I tell you I'm impressed with what we have going on at Coppin. And I'm impressed with what I've heard and I've read in the conversations I've had about the support that you have provided, not only Coppin, but all of the HBCUs in our state. Coppin University has some great opportunities out in front of it. And as the incoming president, we're going to continue to capitalize off what Coppin has done well. When we talk about some of the things at Coppin, we know that Coppin is strong within the STEM areas. We have an actual center of excellence in nanotechnology, which is conducting groundbreaking research, where we are helping to create pathways where we lead in young men and women going on to earn their PhD in those particular science areas. We also are very proud that a large majority of our students who are returning adults and residents of Baltimore stay in Baltimore after they graduate. And that is an investment that adds to the economic drive of Baltimore. We also know that Coppin is really, with Morgan, the cornerstone to helping move Baltimore forward. And one of the things that I've talked about since being chosen as the incoming president is that Coppin is going to focus on making sure that we help that bottom quartile of our community create upward mobility. We understand that in this nation, that if you come from a household of $35,000 or less, you have a 1 in 10 chance of earning a college education. And we know there are families in Baltimore that make less than $35,000 a year. So we have to look at ourselves and ask, what are the hopes, the opportunities, and the pathways for those individuals? And Coppin is going to continue to be committed to making sure we create upward mobility with a quality education for all of those who want one at our institution. I'm also very proud when I talk to the individuals on the ground with our healthcare efforts at Coppin. Our nursing program is solid. Among the HBCUs, we lead the state in passing of the nursing exam and getting people into the actual healthcare profession. That's something that we want to continue to focus on and continue to build and increase the opportunity to become more profound in that space. We also want to look at how we take that expertise and focus on centers of excellence. So from a community-based standpoint, how do we take our experts, our research, and our data to help make sure that we're helping to address the health and the life disparity issues that are in our backyard that affect our own community? And how do we share those, and how do we partner with others? The other piece that I'm very excited to talk more about, not only with you, but with other members of Congress, is the opportunity zones. Coppin is very excited about the potential of what opportunity zones can do to help us change not only our campus, but the footprint around our campus, which I think all of us would agree that we need to continue to invest in and make sure that that part of Baltimore continues to thrive, which has a direct impact on Coppin. We'll continue to focus on student enrollment. Our freshman enrollment was up last year. Our over-enrollment has slipped over the last several years, but we are going to continue to focus on that and put in place some strategic efforts to make sure that we focus on access and opportunity and partnering with the right institutions and our community-based leaders to make sure that access and opportunity and affordability is something that stays as a top priority for Coppin. Like all of my presidential colleagues here, I am pleased to say that we are committed to driving down the cost of higher education. In fact, Coppin has the lowest tuition within the state. And so we want to continue to make sure that coupled with access, quality education, continues to put our students in the best position to leave us, go on to help Baltimore rise, and do so with little to no college debt. So with that, I will yield the floor back to you, Senator, and again, say thank you all for the opportunity to come and speak today.
Well, we welcome Dr. Anderson from UMES. Senator Mathias has been representing you very well, but it's wonderful to have you here, so glad to hear from you.
Senator, thank you very much. And please accept my deep apology. It just shows that you leave at 10:30 in the morning, you still can't even make it to D.C. But we're doing a lot of traffic changes over there. But let me say, first of all, senators, and to all of the legislative body, I want to first of all thank you on behalf of our university for all that you do for us and all the support that you've given us. More importantly, most recently, the support that you've given all of our HBCUs with the Future Act. It was an act that really helped our students across this nation really focus on achieving their dream of a higher education. And what you did really sealed that deal. Tell you a little bit about UMES. And I know that you've been on our campus, and let me say right out front, I invite you back. Please feel free to come back to our campus as an individual or as a delegation. I would love to host you. Give yourself enough time to get across the bridge, however. You may fly over, though. But at UMES, two focal points of where you have helped us in a long standing from the federal delegation, and also our state has helped us, and that's in the area of agriculture and healthcare. And let me just hit up on both of those just a little bit. As you know, we are the only 1890 land-grant institution in the state of Maryland. That means that we focus on agriculture. That means we focus on helping the small farmers who are throughout not just our counties, but throughout the state. And we have been doing this for a number of years. We could not do the work that we do to help the local farmers without the federal monies that we get from you. We are thankful for that. But although we are grateful, we still continue to say, please continue to help us in that regard. For example, our Living Marine Resources Cooperative Science Center really focuses on those particular things that happen in the Chesapeake Bay and also the Atlantic Ocean. And there are things that are happening with oysters, with all sorts of fish and those things that are in the sea that really need our help from a research standpoint. We work to help the farmers with those critical areas. Also, the funding that we receive from the National Institute of Food and Agriculture allows us to help farmers determine how to be more efficient, more effective, how to get more precision agriculture to those particular areas. We also, as you know, are part of the APLU, the Association for Public Land Grant Universities. Myself and Dr. Jenkins, we happen to be the officers of the 1890s delegation there of the APLU. And from APLU standpoint, we have several priorities. Several of those impact UMES in a major way. Priority one is agricultural research. As I just said, not only can we help with the Chesapeake Bay, but we're helping farmers with the hemp industry. We are also advancing what was going on in the poultry industry, and these are areas that we want to continue with, but we need to make sure we have continued funding. The 1890 scholarships are very, very critical to us because they support over 240 of our students who go on to become active in the workforce in agriculture business, in environmental sciences, and also human ecology. Priority three focuses on 1890 facilities grants. We were able to use funding from there to actually purchase farms, and that helps us with the farming, but also helps us with research. And in addition to that, we can add new faculty onto our campus. Most recently, the Centers of Excellence was offering funding. We applied for that, secured that. With the move from the National Institutes of Food Administration from Washington to Kansas, that's kind of slowed that down a little bit, so we're hoping that that gets back on track. Finally, I just want to end with talking about healthcare. Healthcare, as we know, is very critical to all of us, whether it's what's happening right now, but more importantly, the healthcare disparities that you see throughout the state of Maryland, and specifically in rural areas. At my university, at UMES, we have 5 health profession programs. We have pharmacy, we have rehabilitation clinical psychology, rehabilitation counseling. We also have physical therapy. We are about to launch, hopefully, our physician assistant program. We're going to be listing for that any day now. With those 5 health profession programs and the health disparities that you see in rural communities, it means you really got to have a different kind of health provider for the future, one that can focus on team-based care, collaborative care, but one that also has a rural focus. And we're pleased to say that we actually just recently launched, and I have flyers that I can leave here with you, is our Rural Healthcare Disparities and Social Inequities Certificate Program. This is a 1-year certificate program for anyone out there that they'll be able to take this and add on their skills to allow them to practice and work in rural areas, specifically with patients that are needed. But more importantly, we look at making sure that the funding that we receive will help our students continue in these areas, but also continue to add to the workforce in the state, but also throughout the country. So again, I want to thank you for all of what you've done for us in the past, what you continue to do, and I want to urge your continued leadership to prioritize these particular areas that will help our institution, but also my fellow HBCU presidents and other institutions as well. Again, I invite you to our campus, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you. That's quite impressive. Is there a vote on in the House or not? Not yet. Senator Van Hollen.
Well, thank you all very much for your leadership. Thank you for coming today with recommendations for how we can help all HBCUs, but also some of the specific needs that are unique to each of your institutions. We're really grateful for your leadership. As you said, Dr. Jenkins, HBCUs are the engines of opportunities in our communities, in our country, and also essential to creating that pathway to jobs and careers. And so I want to salute all of you for that. Thank you all as well for your help in passing the Future Act. We're grateful to our House colleagues for getting that bill over to the United States Senate. We had a little difficulty for a period of time getting it through the United States Senate. Senator Cardin and our colleagues kept asking for unanimous consent to bring it up, but really your help helped us break through on that. Obviously, that's just one piece of an important puzzle, but it was good to get that done, so thank all of you. Dr. Breaux, thank you for mentioning the HBCU Partnerships Act. I think we all see that as an opportunity to try to channel more federal grant opportunities to HBCUs in Maryland. We really look forward to working with you to make that happen. I know some of you have partnerships already with federal agencies, like NOAA and some other relationships, as well. So I hope to deepen those relationships, and we can work with you in doing that. On the state legislation, I think count me in. I think we're all very supportive of the efforts to make that happen one way or another, whether through legislation or settling the lawsuit. But I want to be part of working with you to push that forward. Dr. Wilson, you mentioned internship programs. I know it's hard for us to compete with Silicon Valley, but I do want to encourage all of you. We welcome internship applications, especially for our summer internship programs. One of the things we were successful at doing in the last couple of years, I was pleased to work in the Senate to create funds for every Senate office so that we can do paid internships, because without that opportunity, obviously it creates a disparity in terms of opportunity. And so we wanted to make sure that we provided that paid scholarship, paid internship money so that all students could afford it. We were glad to see the House also took that action. But I just want to say to all of you, anything you can do to encourage applications. Obviously, there are great futures in Silicon Valley, but we hope we can offer something here as well in terms of an experience. And I will just close by asking you about the sort of student debt situation.
If you would hold that just for
Oh,
one
sure.
moment. I understand there is a vote on in the House.
I'm happy to
I want
hold
to let our three House members that are here, Congressman Trone, Sarbanes, and Hoyer, if they would like to ask some questions before you have to leave, and then we'll get back to that issue.
I've already spoken a little bit, but I don't have a question, but I do want to say that focusing on the role of HBCUs in lifting up people, you mentioned Dr. Jenkins, President Jenkins, about Coppin and its community and low-income families. I think the votes that we've seen lately in the House as well as in the Senate, we initiated that, and of course we have a large, as you know, the largest Black caucus in history. We have 55 members, African-American members of the caucus, and their leadership, Alma Adams, the chair, Karen Bass, former Speaker of the California Assembly, very, very focused, and we mentioned all of the initiatives that are going on. And the reason they're going on is because we believe it's an investment in the future of our country. I mentioned it at the event that we were at, United Negro College Fund of Mine is a terrible thing to waste, and America cannot afford to waste a single mine. And you are a very important role in assuring that objective. So thank you very much.
Congressman,
Thank you.
We
Thank you.
have about 5 minutes left on the roll call.
Congressman Sarbanes?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say how impressive the presentation was, and thank you for your amazing leadership. A common theme in all of what you offered us today is how relevant you are to the workforce needs. And you are each bringing a different set of expertises to that. But that's the most important thing that we can do, is design our education system in a way that responds to the needs out there, whether it's healthcare needs or cyber or what have you. To be relevant as a higher education institution is the most important part of the mission, and each and every one of you are making sure with your leadership that you're meeting that responsibility. So it's really exciting, and I hope that the settlement can come to pass, because it has gone on for many, many years now. And I know that what the effect of it has been to limit your horizons. The planning you want to do, the investments you want to make have been severely undermined by having this lawsuit hanging out there, or the lack of a settlement, because the lawsuit, the basis for the lawsuit was well-founded. The lack of a settlement, the lack of a response, it seems like it's within reach. I hope that we land in a good place with that, and as we indicated, please let us know how we can be helpful when it comes to advocacy on that point. And with that, I'll yield back.
Congressman Trone.
I just want to add, before we have to run, is that I sit on the Education and Labor Committee, so I'm the guy in the Maryland delegation in the House here to help you. We want to be your partner. I also sit on the Higher Education Subcommittee, and I serve on 3 college boards. So I spend a lot of time in this space. I love it. And the HEA, we've got some good stuff in it right now, stuff on Pell Grants, simplifying FAFSA, and other good stuff on payment of student loans, 44 million folks. So keep us in mind and reach out to our offices, and we're here to help you and work together. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
I thank our House colleagues. As Congressman Hoyer pointed out, they're voting on the emergency supplemental for the new coronavirus. So obviously that'll be over here tomorrow for the Senate. Hollen, I interrupted you.
No, votes come first. And thank you again for bringing us together. I just wondered, obviously we're going to continue to push forward on funding for HBCUs. We have Pell Grants, we have student loans. Congressman Trone just mentioned trying to simplify the FAFSA process. We know how important that is. So if you could just talk a little bit about the sort of current situation your students are facing in each of your institutions with respect to graduating with debt and what more we can all do collectively to address that.
You want to? I'll be glad to go first. Any order you want to go in?
Whatever you say.
All right.
Yeah. Dr. Breaux, please, thanks.
So as I was saying earlier, we have worked diligently across the system of Maryland to ensure that we're keeping the tuition rate low. The average increase is only just about 2%. Our tuition is just a little over, with our fees and the tuition, just over $8,200. But then when you put on the room and board, we're up around, and meal plans, again, up around $23,000. I'm very pleased that with all of our efforts, our students are graduating from Bowie State University below the average debt for students graduating from college. Our average debt is just about $29,000. However, that's still not good enough, because students are digging themselves out of a hole, and we don't want that. And we need to continue to strive to keep the costs low. We're doing that. Ensuring that we're growing our endowment. I would venture to guess, my fellow presidents here, we spend a great deal of time out and about building relationships, growing our endowments so that we can provide greater numbers of, a greater amount of scholarship dollars to our students. However, even with all of our efforts, the students are still seeing a gap. And so that's where we continue to struggle, keeping the costs low as much as we can with tuition. But the average at Bowie State University debt is about $29,000.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah.
I echo my colleague, and what I will add and say is that, as Dr. Breaux says, from the system level, we're trying to make sure tuition is kept low. But the other thing that we try to do as universities is try to teach our students financial literacy, because in order to make sure they graduate with lower debt, we want to make sure that they're actually being very wise about how they're handling their funding while they're in school. So you'll find that it's a typical thing that at HBCUs, one of the things we try to do is from the first year is begin to try to engage them in how to make sure you're very efficient in managing your funds. As a first-generation college student myself, I can relate very well to students when they're looking at the coming to school for the first time and not knowing how to really make ends meet. So that's one of the essential areas that we really try to focus on as well.
I often say that I have very few bad days at Morgan. But I do have one bad day every semester. And that's the day when my vice president for enrollment management comes into my office and says, Dr. Wilson, we have 8,200 students here at Morgan, but tonight at midnight, we're going to have to drop about 1,900 of them because they simply do not have the resources to stay enrolled. And like clockwork, and we have worked assiduously up to that point to keep as many of them enrolled as possible. But we do have to drop those students, and so it's almost ritualistic at Morgan. And we drop anywhere from 1,600 to 1,900 students every single semester. And we drop them only because they do not have the money to stay in school and persist to their degree. They cannot pick up the phone and call home and say to mom or dad, that $800 that I owe, that $2,000 that I owe, can you go online or can you call the bursar's office and give them your American Express card? Because there is no American Express card. And so what we do at Morgan is to take the highest percent of our revenue that we get and invest it back into those students as much as we can. About 25% of the tuition and the state support that we get is invested back into institutional aid in order to bring as many of those students that we dropped back into the fold. Now, the challenge there is that when you have to take out of your operating budget, $25 to $26 million, and basically engage in tuition discounting, that's $25 to $26 million that you do not have to respond to many of the other challenges at the institution. And so our students are graduating at Morgan with higher debt. It's roughly about $31,000 per year. And we have all kinds of financial literacy programs. Trust me, we are partnered with everyone that we can partner with in terms of educating students. But the bottom line is that when you have students that really are looking at breaking the cycle of poverty, they're looking at the college degree as their way out. And there's evidence to support intergenerational mobility through socioeconomic status. They want to stay in school, and they're going to take out those loans. And so as much as we educate them about financial literacy, if you will, you can't stand in the way of a dream. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, we do whatever we can as an institution, but we can't take out of our operating budget any more than we are currently taking. Last, I would certainly suggest support, for some aspects of HEA. I thought I read in the last iteration that there would be like a doubling of the Pell, or at least the thinking is along those lines. I think that is a great thing for America. I think that is a great thing for first gens. I think that's a great thing for families who are coming from the kind of background that President Jenkins spoke about. And so I think that's one way of ensuring that we can come out with federal legislation that certainly will affect positively HBCUs in a very significant way, but it would affect all of higher education. And so that's sort of my take on what I think is a real conundrum in higher ed, which is how do you continue to provide a very, very high quality, competitive academic degree program, and then you're trying to keep the cost as low as possible so that more students can taste the magic of higher education.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Heidi.
Yep, thank you, Senator. I don't have much to add. I think my colleagues hit on a lot of the very important points. What I will reiterate is in the bill, the increasing of the Pell Grant is significant. That coupled with the financial literacy that was talked about briefly, coupled with how we as institutions better advise and shorten the time to degree completion will help our students leave with less amounts of debt. As President Wilson noted, it is challenging when you have first-generation college students who have never had access to any significant amount of dollars to now have before them a promissory note that they simply sign their name and can have $5,000 or $10,000. Even through financial literacy programs, it is very challenging to get them to walk back from that. And what my experience has been, and even though, as I said earlier, Coppin has the lowest tuition, and our students graduate with a debt that's lower than the national average, which is $30,200, we still want to see how we push that dollar amount down that they leave our institutions with so that they do start off in a much better place from a financial standpoint, so that that first apartment or that first home doesn't have to take a back seat to paying off student loans. Whatever insight, whatever support you can continue to provide in this current legislation and future legislation would be a significant help. And we, as presidents of our respective institutions, will continue to do our part to not only raise external dollars, but also see how we can shorten the time to degree completion and keep the cost of tuition down while simultaneously providing that quality education that Dr. Wilson and the other presidents talked about.
I want to thank Senator Van Hollen for that question, because I think it really gets to the heart of what we need to do. We talk in Maryland about the Kirwan Commission to try to change the landscape on pre-K through 12. We got to do the same thing in higher education. And here, the federal government has a direct responsibility. We're proud of what you've been able to accomplish, but it's not enough, as Dr. Breaux has said. It's wrong for someone graduating from college with $30,000 worth of debt. That person may very well have a passion to go into a career that that person will not go into because of the debt that is outstanding. Or that person may want to move to the next chapter of her life, but can't do it with that debt that's outstanding there. So it is affecting decisions that are not in the best interest of the individual or our community. And here's the tragedy. If you look back at the trend line of where we've been on debt, you know that if we don't take dramatic steps, what it's going to be 4 years from now or 8 years from now, it's going to be dramatically higher than what it is right now, because you've seen the increase over the last decade on outstanding debt of your graduates. So we have to do a much more effective job on the cost of higher education. I agree that in the higher education reauthorization, the Pell Grants are going to be one of our prime focus. I mean, that's the bread and butter that we have to make sure it keeps up with the cost, and it's been a struggle, and we're going to very much make that a priority. But as I listened last night to both of the two major Democratic candidates for president, they both, I know there's more than two, but there are two that I heard last night. I didn't hear the third. Both talked about being able to be debt-free in higher education. Both of them talked about it. And that's where we need to be. Yes, there's going to be some responsibility on the student beyond just graduating, and he's going to have certain academic achievements and stay online to graduate in an efficient manner and perhaps give some service back to the community. That's perfectly okay. But that avenue needs to be opened. And that's why the legislation we're working on does that, as other members of our caucus have been working on legislation that would allow for debt-free. President Obama's proposal for 2 years. Well, and the HBCUs for 4 years. We've been talking about ways to get to the end equation, but it's urgent that we do that. And yes, we'll do everything we can to hold the cost down now. Dr. Wilson, you're right to make the financial assistance your top priority, but it not only takes away from being able to reach the other missions that you have, you're still losing over 1,900 students a year. That's a tragedy. And you know it's a tragedy, and you doing everything you can to make that go away, but you can't with the current model that we're using on how we finance the cost of higher education. We are an outlier internationally, we know that. So we have to figure out a better way. But we tell you this, we know that the product that you are providing is of the top quality, and we're very proud about that. We know the numbers, particularly among minority students with degrees, and how much you have supplied the needs of our country. And that's why the lawsuit needs to be resolved. We all agree on that. And we need to have adequate funding for your programs. And we are committed as a delegation to work with our colleagues. Congressman Hoyer pointed out the coalition he has in the House. We have a very strong coalition in the Senate on the HBCUs, and it's been very successful. Senator Van Hollen's led many of the efforts on the Appropriations Committee to make sure those programs are funded. And we're going to continue to do that because we're very proud of the four institutions that are represented here today. So we thank you very much for your commitment to our future.
Thank you.
If I could just again underscoring the responses that you provided on the debt load, it just underscores the need for Senator Cardin described dramatic reform. I mean, we need dramatic reform at the federal level in order to address this, and it's a particular challenge for first-generation college students, and as you said, Dr. Wilson, there are millions of students, including students at colleges and universities across the country that are, most of them just can't say, pick up the phone, call home, and put it on the family credit card. They've got to be able to fund it, and it's just putting you in the position of having to, on an emergency basis, cover 1,900 students a year, $29 million from your other resources. Thank you for doing that, but you shouldn't be put in that position. So we will work with you. It is really a federal, an emergency, really, in terms of our higher education system. So thank you all very much.
Well, we certainly appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad you remembered us. Sorry you got stuck. That's what happens with that Babe Ruth.